Well, Steve, appreciate you coming on, man. I think we've talked a little bit about your background at Clark. Um, 20 years at Clark, and then you decided to just make it very difficult on yourself and do a startup life for a little bit. What was the impetus behind the transition?
I mean, I think I was just feeling all the same pain points that everybody's feeling
Yeah.
in the industry broadly. But while I wasn't like a career pre-con guy, I was an ops guy, PM, PX, VP. And, as I rose, I took on more and more P&L responsibility and ultimately was looking over the whole nation for Clark with a focus on the front end because what we accomplished out west and the success, both top line and bottom line, I attributed to the focus that we had on planning the project and setting the table for success and paying a lot more attention to that than most people, I think, in the industry, particularly at that time, did. And that made a huge, huge difference in the outcomes, the relationships with the clients, the repeat work. And it all pointed to, for me, what we wanted as the builder and what the owner wanted was a certainty of outcome. And when you think about the gestation period of a project, on top of the fact that it takes 2 or 3 years to build it, that's like a 4 to 8
Yeah.
year commitment. Hell, I was involved in some of these big OshPod hospital projects, mega projects that we were engaged on one particular job for 10 years. That's like one project, not a series of projects, one project. So that's a lot to be riding a roller coaster without some assurance that it's going to work out in the end with something that you can afford and what you're expecting. But what I found was to accomplish that was incredibly difficult because it was more or less 100% dependent on your people, like
Mm.
their brain, their presence, their willingness to go the extra mile and double check and get into details and all that stuff. And really, for me, the pain point was, geez, in the 21st century here, shouldn't we have something a little bit more modern than a wagon full of ad hoc spreadsheets and people's take on things?
Yeah.
So that pain got acute enough for me to say, I just can't do it this way for 20 more years. And I did not see anybody on the horizon coming to solve the problem like they did in the, I think in the construction phase. You know, I started in the industry before we had any of these platforms. I mean, it was literally Lotus 1, 2, 3 and
Yeah.
logging in RFIs that I was writing on a form with carbon in triplicate and three-hole punching it and putting it in a binder. It was
Love that.
ridiculous. Sending it over a thermal curly Q paper fax. So I tell those stories to some of our younger people, and they have no idea what I'm even talking about. What's a
They're like,
thermal
yeah, what's a
fax?
fax?
So, but you have Procore and Autodesk's, solutions for project management. There's nothing for pre-con. So I said, that's what I need to go do.
So I want to dig into that a bit more in terms of pre-con, how it's maybe evolved over the years. But what kind of assumptions were you making about the tech side, and what has been true, and maybe what has not been so true about what you thought it would take to build a platform?
Well, I've been blessed with a fantastic team through and through, which is no different than my time building buildings. For me, the approach in building Concentric was I am never going to pretend to be a software expert under any circumstances. So, first order was to find and build a world class engineering and design team, which we did. Um, so that part of it actually is quite fun and very similar to what I did, as a builder, particularly as a design builder, where you really need to be able to communicate a vision and organize a team, and then you've got to have a good appreciation for good quality design and a well thought out design, coupled with the execution end, the building end, or in this case, the engineering end of bringing that design its reality. The other aspects of running a business for me was also very familiar because being part of the growth, leading the growth at Clark from, a few hundred million to 2 billion plus at the time. You're building not just buildings, but you're building a team, you're building a company. And so that was familiar. I mean, I do feel I have a great deal of empathy for the young startup founders who haven't had any of that managerial or business experience Lars knows running a company, building a company. Um, that's like on top of everything else, another series of skills that you have to learn on the fly. I had that pretty well. I won't say nailed. You're always constantly learning, but a lot of experience. Um, really for me, the surprise has been at first the resistance to change that the industry had been plagued with. I think we came at this at a better time than if I had tried to do it 10 years prior because I think everybody has started to come into the realization that Excel is not like modern software and it's not data, it's none of those things, and they got to do something more.
It was
So
the tool we had at the time, right? It was the tool we had at the time. Yeah.
all you had. That's all you had. So, I think the effort to reach people, you just think about how do you make everybody aware of what Concentric's all about, who we are, the value we bring. Um, to me, that's where a lot of the work is.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's different. When you're a GC, you're responding to solicitations. It's a much different go to market or
Yeah.
engagement than trying to take our wonderful platform and make sure that the masses, everybody knows about it and comes to our website or comes to our people, like inviting everybody to a house party, you know?
Well, and I, in my own small way, I think as I transition from field ops from the GC side to kind of the go to market motion for a couple construction tech companies, I think one of the pieces of resistance that I felt was feeling like I had to represent the software that I was wearing the hat of as like this be all end all, like the messiah, like the savior of the industry is kind of the narrative that I think construction tech often kind of approaches the industry with, and it doesn't really align with I think what the industry really how it listens, how it buys, and so has that informed your marketing, your go to market, your voice and positioning in the market around just how like maybe approaching the market a little bit more in a more grounded fashion?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
think humility is everything. And, I have seen other folks and other companies approach, our industry like, hey, it's broken and we're here to fix it.
Yeah.
And we've got this newfangled approach. I think that's a huge mistake. I always say that, nothing about what's being done in pre-con is broken. Everybody's system is intentional. It may not be perfect, but it sure as hell not broken. But it's underserved by any form of technology and data strategy that would make life a lot easier. It's kind of a funny thing I say. It's like BASF. They advertise like, "Hey, we didn't invent the light bulb. We just make it burn brighter." So, I mean, I think that's what we do. We're an extension or really a force multiplier, an amplifier of the power of the professional
Hmm.
pre-construction or just industry pro in what they can do. We can help them do it better. And I think where we do greatly improve and change the dynamic is in the communication, the intrinsic elements, which is the communication and collaboration. Because Excel is not a communication tool, but it gets the job done for the workflow and the best practice that is, really state of the art in theory. But with Excel, there's only so much you can do with it. But with our platform and what we've set out to do is to say, yeah, builder, pre-construction professional, you're doing your job great. But the other people, the other stakeholders in the room, they don't think like you, they don't do the work that you do, and they need to be able to consume and be assured of whatever it is that you're doing is providing a certainty of outcome. So it's this conveyance of information and data, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so anything that we can do to take that data and position it graphically, particularly over time, it's lines, not dots, is what communicates trends and
Mm.
direction. You bundle all of that, and with our platform, the beauty of it is not only is the workflow that you're working in helping you get the job done, but the way it's built is its presentation, it serves the presentation as well and the
Hmm.
communication at the same time. It's not like do it in Excel, dump it into this thing that pretties it up, and then other people can consume it. It's just all in one.
All right, sponsor break. Lars, real quick. When was the last time you got a new set of drawings from an architect and they didn't cloud anything?
Well, the one that cost me a couple hundred grand was back, I think, in 2017. So, yeah, lesson learned there.
Yeah, so what I like about what Trick Tools is building is they're looking at tools to help kind of remove the mundane from the job site. And I same as you. Every time there was a bulletin or an addendum, I would go back to the designers and ask them to at least highlight or give me a cover letter on the changes. And that was always like pulling like teeth. But Trunk Tools is now automating that. So you get a bulletin come in, it automatically highlights the changes. You don't have to do a thing.
Well, it's also hitting RFIs, right? It's also hitting submittals. And when we think about standardizing ops, right, and providing that, sort of resource to those field operators, what I see it as, it's sort of like this like mentor within the company that structures, standardizes, keeps it moving in the right direction, looks out for risk. And just this last week, I had a QC manager just pass along a submittal to an owner without doing a review because he was too busy, and it was wrong. And the classic owner statement is, "Did you even review this?" Right? So this to me is carte blanche. We absolutely did, and think about getting that first pass before your field manager ever even actually has to do the first pass. Someone's doing it for them. So to me, it's about speed. It increases accuracy and helps standardize ops out in the field. Right?
Yeah, and this is the kind of AI that we've talked about on the
Yep.
podcast, really appreciating, right? Which is looking at ways to elevate the craftsman at the heart of project delivery.
Give me time back so I can be out in the field managing risk. Right?
Yeah,
Yep.
100%. So, all right, if you're a little curious, check it out, trunktools.com/podcast. And if you mention construction conversations, you get a discount. Do it.
Discount demos are free, and and you guys get a discount. So let's
That's
go.
right. And maybe just to ground the listener in kind of what Concentric does. Obviously, it's a tool sitting in kind of the pre-con category. Is it focusing on kind of internal bid prep in response? Is it that early, or is it all the way through? How in a couple sentences, how would you describe the platform?
Um, I mean, Concentric is the pre-construction ecosystem. So it's all of it. So if you think about somebody has an idea and that's all it is, maybe it's a sketch on a cocktail napkin, they can engage with our platform and develop budgets and plans at that very early stage within our platform, guided by data and their historical information, whether it's cost, durations, you name it. Um, you take that through the entire pre-construction life cycle in our platform, all the way through the subcontractor bidding and buyout and bid leveling. And I mean, basically everything up to when you're pouring concrete and swinging steel and you're truly in construction, you live in our platform, much like you would live in Autodesk Build or Procore, doing all of those things. Um, and we're an open platform from the standpoint of we don't want to cause you to have to switch off of a point solution that you are comfortable with. Take estimating. The estimating category, that's a calculation. So there's whatever, 7 different software in addition to Excel that people use to do their estimating, and below that, their quantity takeoffs. We've chosen to let you use those products because what we're solving for is not the estimating challenges. We're solving for the broader pre-construction challenges. And what I mean by that is pre-con involves not just the estimate and calculating the cost aspect. It could involve the superintendent who's going to build the project, the pre-construction managers, the VP of pre-con who needs to keep track of an entire collection or portfolio of projects, the CFO, the CEO. Everything in pre-con is your future backlog. So we also give insights from top to bottom at any level, at any form of analysis you need to do in our platform. But we would prefer to be a partner and complementary to those estimating calculators because that's a big decision for a customer to want to need to switch off of. And our platform's so easy to just adopt and use. It's been built purposely for that reason. We just don't want to create that kind of friction, and it's not necessary. The estimators, if you think about pre-con, is 40 plus workflows if you're going to really thoroughly plan a project. And the estimating function, while super critical, is only one of the 40. Well, if there's options out there in the market, great. There are 38 other things that are still Excel based that don't need to go solve that nobody else really knows how to solve except for industry folks like myself with 26 years of experience under their belt.
So, my day job, represent a team that sells construction services in the kind of the BIM VDC services
Yep.
category. And we're seeing more and more requests to kind of support kind of pre-con and early works contracts with owners, an attempt to get more fidelity, more definition around the design in the pre-con phase before we break ground. What with someone with your kind of depth of experience historically, and then also from the software side, how is pre-con evolving? Maybe in the last 5, 10 years that you're seeing.
I mean, I've seen it evolve since I entered the industry in the early 90s, where the vast majority of the work back then was hard bid. The classic rip them and read them. Pre-con, generally was at that point in time, hey, the developer, the architect, they've been working on something all the way through like 75% CDs, and then they would drop on the market an almost complete set, bid it out, and then get two or three generals to VE the job because it always needed to get kind of the the trajectory correction, and then that was pre-con. Well, it's evolved to where those outcomes were not ideal, and I think the realization that what we know to be today, like the CM at risk, GCCM, whatever you want to call it, and now design build and progressive design build, those forms of contracting are an effort to bring the builder in at a much earlier stage to represent the cost, the planning from a logistics and schedule perspective early, influence the design to then ultimately go on and build the job. And so, FMI, there's a bunch of stats out there that right around this time in this decade, or even at the end of the decade, 80% or more of all projects by quantity and cost will be done with something other than hard bid. So any project other than hard bid necessitates a pre-construction team, a collection of stakeholders with a rather long gestation period. Currently, none of that being served by technology or Concentric holistically. You know, the contract has evolved. The people being able to conceptualize more than just quantify has evolved, but the process and the technology that defines the process or supports the process has not evolved. And so, I mean, I just saw this why I left to do this. I just saw our teams I put together. I mean, we had great people, and they would work their tail off. But it's like fighting a fight with two hands tied behind your back. It's just hard. It didn't need to be that hard without, if you've got structured data that you can leverage automatically at your fingertips to help inform decisions today and even project into the future. If you've got a platform like ours that defines a good best practice process that everybody can see and chew on, that fills a void. And the void is what drove me crazy because you have younger and younger people around the table from all stakeholder groups that may not have nearly as much experience. And that void is like a process that everybody just readily adopts. No, if nobody has that, then everybody does it their way. And then you have this reconciliation challenge, and trust generally erodes, confidence erodes, because everybody's truth is left to be different until you like combat and get it all hammered out. Why not just draw from a single source of truth and a best practice that is visible that people can sign into and use and see and not have to take everybody's word for it? So,
Lars, what does pre-con look like on some of the work that you guys have recently won at Dawes?
So it's interesting because we still live in some hard bid environment, right? With the government, they're still doing rip and reads, man. They're still
yeah,
doing it.
yeah,
um, and I think about like that world, and in my previous construction company, to me it was a coordinated effort around buyout, right, and procurement. Just one, bid leveling quickly, and then making sure that we're making the right buy decisions at the right time. If it's designed, if it's plan and spec, like what do we know? Who did we commit to? Let's move quick. And if it's, you know, uh, design build, it's, who are our early partners? How do we get them under contract quickly? How do we sign them up for the right scope and not leave too much money on the table, or, you know, shift too much risk to them, or us hold too much risk? But it is interesting on some of the more, we're doing some developments, multifamily things like that, and these are having 2, 3, 4 year goes right now, planning and design, and I could see where there is, how do I bring more transparency and partnership rather than just procurement and buyout? And I will, I am curious, a little bit, some of the things that, when you talk about, 38 other steps or 39 other steps just beyond like a bid day spreadsheet. Are you guys handling invitations to bid or anything like that? How you guys are handling ITBs?
yep.
Yep.
So procurement for me was near and dear to my heart. That was like
Yep. That's the best.
the part of the
It
pre-con
is.
effort
Yeah.
that I knew there was a huge amount of risk in, because if you don't get it right, you're going to be off financially, but the scope that you're missing are like time bombs. And when they blow up in the construction phase, when the superintendent's trying to get work done, you could bring a project or an area of a project to a screeching halt, and it only gets more expensive. So I was always really paying a lot of emphasis on that because that was definitely a big risk item. Again, back in the day, reaching out to subs in that whole bid process and getting coverage was a massive time task and effort. And then, solutions that came around Smart Bid and Building Connected, did a good job of, hey, how do you create a forum that the GC and the subcontractors can exchange information to get a bid submitted? But those tools, I mean, it's like a 6 chapter story, and those tools are solving chapter 5, and chapters 1 through 4 and chapter 6 were really left unaddressed. We immediately, in the very early stages of our company, built out chapters 1 through 4, so that way you could, in a much more data supported, structured environment, define the scopes and do the thought work leading up to what you otherwise finalize in a PDF version of your ITBs and your exhibits that you're attaching to the boilerplate to then upload into one of those solutions. But then after that, the proposals come in, and everybody still is using an Excel spreadsheet to scope out everything. And that effort is literally reading a proposal and checking boxes, and incredibly important, but incredibly tedious in the amount of time that takes. So the exciting thing about, the Concentric platform is it's always been built from day one to digitize the workflows that you're fashioning up in Excel or any of these other, you know, rather dumb kind of pieces of software, such that we solve that problem, and then the data then becomes useful. And we knew that AI, machine learning, 6, 7 years ago, that's going to be emerging. To see what it is today, it's been quite exciting. And so when everybody started coming to us saying, "What are you doing about bid leveling?" Because there's really nothing, reliable out there as that chapter 6. We said, "Okay, we hear you," because we're all about the customer voice. And we built we took it one step further. We said, "Hey, we're the leader in agentic AI applied to pre-construction. It makes sense that this is a fantastic category for proposals to come in, our agentic AI to perform all its magic on the proposal, populate that scope sheet for you, and the only thing you have to address are the things that are a question mark anyway that you'd have to call that sub to clear up in the first place." But the time savings is massive. I mean, think about, you get 6 proposals in one bid package all at the same time. A human's going to go through each of those thoroughly, not bid day, but literally when you're combing through it with a finer tooth comb to actually go to contract. That takes a lot of time. You could have all 6 come in simultaneously being leveled in a matter of 30 seconds, and arguably in a more fail-safe fashion than the 25-year-old that only has a couple years under her belt that you're throwing at these things.
Like, hey, you go figure this out, right?
Right, like, hey, so that's just like one of many examples of what Amplify, our agentic AI, um, system does within our platform.
I mean, for the 25-year-old who wants to become the next Steve Dell'Orto, what do you think were the things that helped maybe position you for promotion and do well in that kind of pre-con environment? Were you maybe, I mean, just to back up a little bit, were you in the field driving excellence and then they kind of scooped you into pre-con? Like, I think for that maybe segment of the audience, it'd be interesting to understand what separated you and how did you kind of drive a career around pre-con?
Started as an intern, out on a project, shucking RFIs and the usual, posting drawings with scotch tape and scissors, marking it up with a red pen. Did all that, came up PM, was out in the field as a superintendent on projects. I think for me, I was just a sponge, and I just wanted to learn everything. I wanted to be involved. I wanted to be on the hardest projects, and I knew I was just learning, and paying attention to what didn't work and the hard lessons you can very easily learn in our industry, and learn from those as well. So I think it was just a willingness to work hard, and not rush through, a project saying, "Hey, I just checked all these boxes. I kind of did RFIs for a week, so I'm a master now. I checked that box," like you're a Boy Scout getting your Weebelo badge or something. It's not that. It's soaking it all in, and then as you go through, like, I came up through ops. I never like transitioned and was in a pre-con capacity. I actually felt that I wanted to sleep in the bed that I made, not in a bed that others made. So I just forced myself into the planning stage as the PM or the VP that was going to be responsible for the project, took the client relationship, kind of really led the pre-construction effort with the resources that we had to ensure that, that the owner was getting great service and that we were planning the job for our own needs as well. And I just got really good at it, and I just developed a passion for pre-con because I just felt that's the least, say, represented with experience and, best practices and all that. And so structuring the deals, trying to de-risk the project for everybody's benefit, just thinking about how the job should get built, I just found as a really, really, um, cool, motivating thing, and was just into it. And then, if you career-wise, you learn your craft and spend the time to master it. Then you can apply it to how best to structure a deal that everybody's going to win, and then make money. And if you're making money and the jobs are performing well, then obviously you're going to have a bright future. And that's just kind of the path I followed, and I enjoyed it. My career, I say, kind of went through three stages. The first stage was it was so much fun as a young intern project manager, walk the job and the cranes and the excavators, and we were blasting with dynamite, hard rock sites and stuff like that. Cool stuff. But after a while, after you do enough of the projects, you've seen the cranes, you've seen the
I need
excavators,
to go.
you're like, okay.
Let me go do something else. Yeah.
Right. Then it became more about, the art of the deal, or structuring things and how to make money, and how to have like the systems and everything really tight and close the job out really clean. And I mean, I was just motivated in the middle part of my career to just outperform everybody. I wanted to have the shortest closeout period. I wanted to have the best profit. I wanted to have the cleanest whatever. But the last third was really about people, and how did I mentor people and bring people along on their career and invest in them. And so, I'd go visit our jobs, and they're like, "You want to go for a job walk?" It's like, sure, but it wasn't like why I was there. I was there to see how they were doing, how they were performing, and get a gauge on, do they have the system set up right? Is everybody, you know, winning, the owner and everybody? That's the outcome. But it was the people. And to this day, it's really that same applies here at Concentric. It's just build the team, invest in the people, train the people, and help them be successful in their goals and their own career vision, and bring them along. Because if you have, like we have, 40 people, if you have 40 people all winning, then the company can win.
Yeah.
It's not just about me. That's kind of the last thing it's about.
Any good leadership books that you've leaned on to kind of frame your, leadership thesis?
Leadership books, I'm not the guy I'm in an airport all the time. I'm not the guy that's going into the airport and buying management, self-help books. I'm more inspired by history.
Yeah.
So my favorite book, at least as it or shapes a business outlook or what's possible, is I don't know. It's just a book, Freedom's Forge, and it's really about the spectacular people that knew World War II was inevitable, and that the U.S. at the time was just not, kind of through an isolationist period, was just not prepared to go fight at that scale. And Bill Knudsen and President Roosevelt and a couple people just knew that this was coming, and they needed to scale up the industrial capabilities of the nation. When you read the book and you just see what they did, and like one person would just influence to say, mission critical, this must happen, and pull out all the stops. We're going to convert massive Ford plants into producing, whether it was buttons for the military uniforms, or it was, the
Thanks.
bombers, fighters. It's an incredible story about
Steve, it's amazing because you live in California, right? You live in California. Are you up north?
I am. I'm in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Now,
and
I was down in your neck of the woods for.
yeah, and I just think about all the layers of like bureaucracy that have like thwarted progress, and during that time in history, it was like at all costs we have to move forward. Our survival depends on it. And I was like driving into work literally this morning. I'm just thinking like we have made it impossible to like get things done. How long does it take to like get a new housing development approved? And now again we have a housing crisis, and then now that it's like, what do they call it? Complete communities here in San Diego, right? Increased densification, all this stuff. But it's like they literally legislated this crisis rather than this whole like at all costs we have to move fast. And that period in time was like that was so amazing how quickly things moved. I can't wait to read that. I hadn't heard about that book.
It's
I
amazing.
love
And
that period in time.
for me, it's inspiring about, man, it's what one human can accomplish if they just put their mind to something, and they just, it's not easy. You have to run headlong into the walls and
Oh yeah,
blast through them,
oh
you know.
yeah. Row upstream,
For me, it's
upriver.
a little bit, it's inspiring, and I also have to keep my patience level in check because I love t-shirts, and so I should have worn it today. I've got one that's like, a pre-con, we set the table for success, and on the back, it's a letter in handwritten letter. It's like, hey, dear ops, we worked hard on this. Don't F it up. Love your pre-con team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I just want
That's
to get a
good.
t-shirt done. It's like, get shit done.
Yeah,
You
there you
GSD
go.
know,
baby,
just,
GSD.
just get it done. And when we have these meetings with companies to present and demo the platform, and I'm presenting to probably a table full of kids who weren't born when I started in the industry, and we're showing them, this platform that is the playbook that, in essence, made me successful just in digital form. And they look at it and they're like, well, I don't know, and they hem and haw, and I have to be polite and humble, but it's like, what's the debate here? Your collection of Excel spreadsheets and the way you've been doing it versus this, and it's been built by a builder. This isn't a big leap here. Get on board. And I mentioned builders. I mean, that's a huge thing for us in that, you know, being a builder, I was always more comfortable engaging with a software person that had a background, or whatever you're buying, if they had a background in that versus just an outside software person just trying to invent an issue to solve for somebody else's industry. So all of our customers that come on board, when they learn our background, it's not just me. We have, our customer success team, our solutions team, everybody. They're all coming from estimating, pre-construction backgrounds. And I formed Built by Builders with a bunch of other fellow founders like Josh Levy at Document Crunch, and Cameron Page at ClearStory. There's about 13 of us now. John Andres from a very accomplished builder family in Texas just came on because he, like all of us, said, "Hey, there's some pain points out here. I'm going to go solve them." And he founded ProVisual for inspections, and it's a great solution. And so, Built by Builders is founders like myself that did step out to build and innovate a company to help solve those pain points that drove us crazy while we were, running projects. So I'd encourage people to check that out too, because there's a whole array of offerings of different things that would go a long way to make your life easier. And it's, backed and by design, driven by a fellow builder as a founder.
Hey guys, if your experience was anything like mine when I was a PM, change orders were kind of a pain. You send the change order, then you spend the next 2 weeks chasing it. Subs are texting you updates. Meanwhile, you have a change order log buried in email. Your spreadsheet doesn't match theirs, and you're just trying to figure out what's actually been approved. Meanwhile, your subs are waiting on answers so they can get paid. The owner doesn't really have the visibility they need into cost exposure, and nobody finds out that the numbers don't reconcile at all until closeout. At which point, everyone suddenly disagrees about everything. That's not a people problem, it's a systems problem. Everybody on the job is working out of their own setup. Your ERP, their spreadsheet, someone else's inbox. Change orders end up getting stuck in the middle of all of it. Well, ClearStory fixes that. It's a shared cloud-based change order log where GCs, specialty contractors, and owners all see the same information in real time, which is key. Subs submit and track their work. GCs stay on top of status. Owners see cost exposure before it becomes a surprise. No more digging through email trying to reconcile the logs at closeout. Just change orders under control, which is a unique concept. Check it out at clearstory.build. It seems like one of the common threads you can kind of pull through your career is, one, kind of the willingness to learn and putting yourself in a position to maybe kind of learn the hard truths, but then like as a team builder, putting the right people in place to succeed. And then I also hear like agency, like really focusing on finding people with agency, and I think that's something that resonates with me as well as what separated me is taking responsibility and always driving to a solution. And I think when I hire now, that's one of the main things I look for is this a high agency kind of person
Yeah.
that can come in and is going to try and do self learning when they can. It's like high agency and willingness to learn. With those two things and kind of baseline competence and domain expertise, you can do quite a bit. Um, Tell me more about the Built by Builders network. I think it's an interesting concept. There's more and more maybe domain expertise kind of coming into the tech side, which is encouraging. Um, how does the network maybe support that group of founders, or what's the main thesis of the group?
Yeah, I mean, to what we were talking about earlier about not coming in and saying everything's broken and, a bit of humility. We're Built by Builders is here to be a resource to the industry. So it's just simply to help raise awareness and be available as, solution providers to whatever that problem is. So it's really a network of founders where we can work and help each other, but at the same time, there's strength in numbers. And so by us all working together in that composite and having that available to people to come and check out a solution for maybe they need something for change order management or for certified payrolls or whatever. Just go to the Built by Builders website, builtbybuilders.com, and there you can engage with any one of those companies that um, could help solve your problems. But then we also just try to do some fun stuff where at all these different conferences that we go to in different combinations, just hosted happy hours and anything that we could do to bring people in, not just to talk to us, but you'd be amazed at the great collaboration among people that otherwise might be competitors. Just have a conversation about their own pain points and what are they doing to solve things. Kind of provides that community and that environment for people to just swap ideas and exchange things that have worked for them. And that's really what we want it to be. There's no real self-interest. We don't make money off of it, but we do hope that by engaging with us, the appreciation of, hey, these are solutions that um, are going to be a lot less risky to adopt because they've been thought through by a builder. They're actually going to hit the bullseye when you think about how are you solving it? Are we making, that's the thing with software. And I think that's probably what plagued our industry for a while is outsiders coming in and coming up with a mousetrap that they thought would solve our problem, but it just actually made more work. I mean, when we were building LA Live, I had a team of 40 project managers, superintendents, and project engineers, and we kind of set up in almost like a bullpen format. But when I would kind of walk through the floor, everybody's on a laptop, everybody's typing, filling field after field after field, data field. I was like, wrong field. Get out on the job site. That's the field you need to have your head plugged in. Go talk to the foreman and the superintendent. Just go up to them and say, what's getting in your way from being productive? What can I do to solve it? That's what you do. Don't sit there and plug your stuff into the PM platform for
And
the
I
sake
think for
of
you,
generating
yeah.
reports.
The problem is that we created that world with the technology, right? It just added more sludge, and then it's almost like, well, wait a minute. Now I got two things to do. I need to go walk the job and spend my time out there, but now I have all these reports I got to do. This
Right.
is insane.
Right.
Yeah, it's
So,
crazy.
um,
We're getting close. We're getting close. We're gonna get on the other side of this.
well, I mean, that's like our mantra from a design standpoint is make less work, not more. And so everything that we do is don't add clicks, take them away. Look through. We spend a lot of time with our customers. We got advisory groups because it's all about the customer voice. I mean, I've got many sketchbooks full of the single line diagram of the perfect pre-construction machine, but that would exclude everybody else's ideas. And when you can collect all of the ideas and the best of the best, then you're going to have a world-class solution. And what we pay attention to is, hey, customer will bring in their whole, like, here's examples. Like, that's great. That's going to inform, you're trying to go from A to Z, but we don't necessarily have to go B, C, D, E, F, and add all of those steps to get there. Let's reimagine, if that's your end goal, what can we build and how do we build it to get you there maybe in 3 steps instead of 26.
Less work, man. Less
So
clicks.
how much of the go to market maybe evolves into some variety of consultative services, Steve, right? Like as we look at what AI is enabling us to do, the quantity of agents kind of coming into the market that are more and more sophisticated. We've talked a little bit on the podcast before, the merging of tech and services. So as you look at Concentric now versus maybe what you're building in the future, there's a real need for domain expertise, field expertise to kind of get front loaded into the pre-con process. That's really labor constrained, like every other part of construction is. Is there a reality where, like Steve Dell'Orto, like the digital version of you is someone that they're interacting with in Concentric, and like there's a mixture of physical and digital realities in which they're kind of combining your expertise into their current kind of pre-con efforts? Like what does the future of Concentric look like?
Well, I mean, I was just at, advancing pre-construction talking about this very topic from the standpoint of um, um, when you think about all this knowledge and you think about all the people that are going to be retiring because of the baby boomer generation, and there's like 40% of our workforce will basically be out in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, that's a scary amount. And I don't think people realize and appreciate that talent deficit is not going away and there's nothing you can do about it because we just don't have enough people. Yeah, we've never had enough people coming in to not just come in, but learn over the time to become an expert to replace the experts that are going to retire. And at the same time, the demand for all things built is just will grow because population's growing by 25% by 2040. You look at what the data center market, you just don't have enough people to go out and manage that stuff. So you got these two curves that are diverging, and it's the difference that's ever growing. So you have to address the labor gap with technology. There's no human solution to close that gap. But from an expertise perspective, what our customers are doing right now with our platform is institutionalizing that knowledge. The pre-con pro that's been doing it, that's about to retire, they have so much information in their head. They can tell you what a cost per square foot of composite structure should cost at an early performance stage. It's in their head. It's like this database that's growing. How do you institutionalize that? How do you take that microchip out of their head, stick it in somebody else's head? Peer-to-peer knowledge transfer doesn't work. That breaks down really quickly. Mentorship, that's a great initiative that oftentimes just fails. If you can get all that knowledge and that knowledge in the way that it's being calculated and contextualized in their head, if that's just built out into a platform like ours, then you are institutionalizing that knowledge through everybody's use. Number one, I guess inherently, if you have a builder designing a platform like ours, you are in essence getting that knowledge and experience baked into the very tools that your younger people can use so they don't make the mistakes that they would if they were inventing it on their own. Now you put AI into the mix, and the cool thing about our platform is every customer within their tenant, think of it like a vault, uh, their own knowledge base is growing, and it's going to allow the agents that we provide them to work with their data, work with these digitized workflows, but the agentic power that can now do things, learn from what Lars has been working on his project, such that the context and all of that is contributing to the knowledge base that then informs what the agent can do. And that's the force multiplier. So At Concentric, we're going from, let's, a medium-sized firm might have 10 full-time people doing whatever array of pre-construction work. They already can do the same amount of work that 10 people did with five without AI, just through the automation of good digitized workflow. Five will be turning into one. My view is one person with agents should be able to do the work of 10. Does that mean nine people lose their job? Absolutely not. You're underwater as it is with
That's
talent.
right.
Now you
You
have
redeploy them.
you
Redeploy.
redeploy them to more. You've brought on more bandwidth.
That's right.
You can chase more work, and you've got more work that can be done by the people that you have. So you can kind of 10x your company in theory just through bandwidth, chase more work,
Yep.
support more work, win more work. Now you got more work throwing off the profit that goes right to your bottom line.
Self-licking ice cream cone. Preach it.
So if you're an enterprise, you buy Concentric. If you're an individual in the last 10 to 15 years of your career, digitize your brain, sell that to your company before you retire.
If you can do that as an individual,
This is what I keep telling people, Lars. I think if you're in the last 10 years of your career, I think it's really important that you get really strategic around how you are creating a second digital brain. We talked a little bit about this.
Talk about this, yeah.
I do think, there's a way that the company and the individual wins in this race.
Yeah.
And because, no company is going to get 100% efficient at digitizing everyone's brain, nor do I think it's necessarily ethical, right? And
Right.
so I think there's a way in which the individual, armed with the right tools, can capture their expertise and create some kind of individual licensing model. But that is for the future.
yeah, but I think too the folks that are nearing the end of their career, they want to contribute. They've been, that's the great thing about our industry is that loyalty to a company. It's there's a lot of people, particularly in that age, that have their whole tenure. My life at Clark, my entire career was spent there, and um, wasn't moving from one company to the next. Their legacy is what are they leaving? Are they leaving it better than, when they came on board? And they just want to do right and help, but it's hard and it's a big task on top of all the others. So as a company, if you can make it really convenient and easy for that individual before they leave to just take all of that and leave it behind for the company and all the people that they've been grooming and helping so they can go on and be successful. I think there's just some very an altruistic desire on everybody's part, not whether or not they can capitalize on it. They just want to do right by the company that they are retiring from. And we were brainstorming at another AI conference I was speaking at in Austin in February, and there were just some great ideas that we cultivated in the crowd. Like part of what you can really do in construction, it happened at the happy hours on a Friday when you had the general superintendent at the bar stool sitting next to the intern. That general superintendent's telling stories about things that they did and challenges they encountered and how they solved it. That story is rich with teachings, learnings for that young person to take in and contextualize. It doesn't have to be mathematical. It doesn't have to be procedural. Some of it's just leadership, how to confront challenges, how to get a job done, at all costs, like we were talking about, pulling out all the stops, pulling an all-nighter, working with the fire marshal and the fire alarm, software engineer in the closet there trying to get your TCO. It's those experiences that they were like, yeah, just on an iPhone, just record yourself and just build a collection of these recordings because you can drop that into AI now and you can start pulling really meaty learnings and teachings out of that. So
Yeah,
a
100%.
lot
There's a
simpler.
general superintendent who I'm friends with who I've told that very thing, and it's essentially like once a week, once whatever you think about it, like take 15 minutes and just record yourself talking about different phases of your career, and then I'll help you package that and do a little biography or a little autobiography. Like I think, yeah, I do think that's a cool opportunity. So we've got a few minutes left, Steve. Looking at kind of the career you've had, the different lives you've lived, um, maybe identifying you as a young intern. What would you tell that young intern now about what you've learned about the industry as kind of a heads up? Like, hey, this is what you need to know. This is what you're going to get into. Any advice for your previous self? How much margin, or more importantly, how many headaches have you had as a result of margin lost to something that was buried in the documents? A requirement in the spec that didn't match the contract, a flow down clause that shifted risks nobody caught, a conflict between drawings and addenda that showed up 3 months too late as a denied change order. I'm sure each of you guys are experiencing a bit of the cold sweats just thinking about some of those scenarios. So these aren't rare events, as you know. They happen on nearly every project, and most projects just absorb the loss because there hasn't been a better way to manage it. That's what Document Crunch is changing. So Document Crunch is the AI risk management platform built for you guys. It reads construction documents the way your best expert would, identifying and verifying risk with answers you can trust and trace. The trace part of that is really important, as we found with some of these other AI tools out there. Here's what makes it different from general AI. Crunch AI verifies before it answers. Every answer traces back to the exact document, page, and clause it came from. So when your decision gets tested in an OAC meeting or a change order dispute, you know you are on solid ground. It's not just about finding a risk, it's about making sure risk is identified, tracked, and acted on, so nothing gets lost between pre-con and the field. Construction has accepted preventable loss as a cost of doing business for far too long. Document Crunch is setting a new standard. Learn more at documentcrunch.com/construction conversations. Check them out.
Yeah, I mean, in the context of the new generations, I have a 19-year-old who's in college, and I kind of advise her all the time to get ready. I think that generation is, I need to check the box, I need to move up, and it's mechanical. Just learn, be a sponge, take it all in, and don't rush it because um, it's that stuff that you're taking in that's going to allow you to be an effective manager and leader in the future. And if you just rush through the tasks thinking that that's all it is, and you don't master it, then you can't teach the next person. If you can't teach the next person, then you can't manage the next person, and you're going to be a rather ineffective manager and then leader beyond that. So I think people miss that, that soft point, which is, you know, in your career, just the doer work isn't what you're going to eventually be doing if you're going to be successful in the long run. You've got to manage people, and then you got to graduate from management and lead people, and those are two very different things. And those are the soft skills. But unless you are a master at the hard skills, you're never going to get past that because you can't then in turn truly teach. So, that's it just gets down to hard work and just having a good solid work ethic and loyalty too. It's just jumping around and only trying to capitalize on what benefits you and not giving things the appropriate amount of time. There's a loyalty factor that I see somewhat a little bit less these days than what I know I started with and the generation before. And I think loyalty is grossly underappreciated.
I think construction is one of the remaining industries where maybe loyalty is still mutual, right? I think in other industries, specifically tech, I think it's increasingly understood that, and not necessarily construction tech, but outside, industry agnostic tech, there's no loyalty there, and I think that's leaking into other industries a little bit. But I
Yeah,
think you're right. There's benefits to longevity in a specific spot.
yeah.
Lars, any closing thoughts?
You always do this to me, and then you complain that, I ask a
Well,
big question.
Lars, Lars's theme is he'll ask a 10-minute question with a minute left,
What,
which
what,
is
what does Steve do for fun? What does Steve do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I coached my daughters. Both my daughters play lacrosse. I coached their teams. for a long time. I haven't done that in a couple of years. I kind of miss it. That for me was a lot of fun because similar to what I did now and before, it's like about training people and investing
Yeah.
in other people and
Yeah.
seeing them succeed. Um, you know, us, leading and founding a startup doesn't leave too much time for extracurricular activities. So
Neither does running a construction project. Let's be honest.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's
true.
you. I think you and I have both chosen hard paths, busy paths, but they're certainly rewarding. So
Very,
yeah,
very
love it.
much so. Very much so.
Well, Steve, if you have margin for coaching, I'll invite you out to the next YMCA 5-year-old coaching sesh, and we'll get them all whipped into
Amen.
shape.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, thanks for joining us.
Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Steve.